Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's always a privilege to follow the Honourable Member for Colchester and to hear some of the information he's put forward to today. You mentioned about the Batman for Field Marshal Montgomery, who heralds from my constituency of Strangford, and of which I'm very, very pleased to associate myself with Colchester, and that's a privilege. I'm also very proud to stand here today on behalf of my fellow British men and women in support of our troops, because that's a big issue for me in my constituency. And over the years, as a councillor and as an assembly member, I've had the opportunity on many occasions to speak on behalf of and bring notice of motion to both chambers to support our troops, whether it be to do with the equipment. And in many cases, there was over the years a number of issues to do with equipment for those who were out in the field in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and those are issues that we've done, and we've tried at every stage to support them. I've also practically and physically supported the charities, in this case the Soldiers, Sailors, Air Force Families Association, and along with the good people of Ards and Strangford have made sure through coffee mornings we've raised thousands and thousands of pounds for those associations and for those charitable organisations. Again, that's what the volunteers do when it comes to working on behalf of those people. That association helps those who serve, those who have served, and their families by providing a reliable, caring and trusted service to more than 50,000 people right across the whole of the United Kingdom, and in particular to Northern Ireland. And just for the record as well, to have it on record, when it comes to the service, and everyone here and both sides of this House have recognised the service of those in uniform in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland never ever had to have conscription. It was that volunteers, they lined up to join up and to sign on, and that was the history of Northern Ireland. I come from an area where armed forces service is not the exception to the rule, but is very much everyday life. In my office in Ards, and one of the 3 offices that I have as an MP, my secretary's nephew and my researcher's friend and her husband are serving Queen and Country, and a staff of 3 out of the office. We have 3 people who are connected with the staff. Again, it shows very clearly the efforts that everyone makes. And I have every confidence that when I stand here today to support this notice of motion, that I'm standing and speaking for my constituents of Strangford, who are proud of their service personnel all over the world. I've also, along with some other honourable members on both sides of the House today, have joined the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme, which gives us an opportunity, perhaps, to, from an MP point of view, to support and help and understand better. And also for the armed forces to perhaps call upon us to support them whenever it comes to this House, and this is an opportunity to do just that. Through that presentation last week, you can sometimes realise just how young some of the people who serve are. And one of the presentations we had was from a very young officer, and the members who were here will remember that very clearly. So young, so brave and so wise was the way I seen it, and I suspect that the other members who were there seen it the same way as well. I've also been an avid supporter of the Honour the Covenant campaign, which is a British Legion's campaign calling on government to honour its lifelong duty of care to those making a unique commitment to their country. I believe the Military Covenant does not have the force of law, but it has been enshrined through convention, custom and contemporary application, and it represents the nation's moral commitment to its armed forces. It's a campaign which reinforces the necessity of remembering those who not only have died, but also those who have fell in injury and whose lives will never be the same again. There have been changes made to the MOD, and the government treats our returning soldiers, but still more, I believe, must be done. And I pay tribute to the Secretary of State. I gauge people from how I find them. I believe his commitment is very clear to the armed services. Sometimes we might disagree just exactly how it's done, but I think there is a real commitment there, and I acknowledge that. I know he's not in the chamber, he's out, but it will be unanswered for him to acknowledge. There has to be an extension of NHS priority treatment to all veterans. Again, a very clear issue. It's the aftercare that is given to those who are physically and emotionally damaged, injured as a result of what happens out there. It must be a way of life in the NHS that includes a better access to veterans' mental health services, which is necessary, I believe, due to the unbelievable things that these men and these women are seeing and experience in the line of service. I've also met many ex-RUC men and women who relive those atrocities every day of their lives, probably to the day they die. I've met with soldiers who see friends lost in vivid detail, and as much as our innate stiff upper lip, that Britishness that sometimes we have, may kick in, those people need help to process what they have seen and what they now live with. Yeah. It is not an easy job, and their service should never be forgotten or overlooked. When speaking to these brave men and women, amidst the grief and the sorrow is a determination that what they are doing is not in vain, and they will take pride in their sacrifice made. A young soldier, my constituency, just before Christmas, and her husband lost a very dear friend to one of the IEDs, and we know just how horrific they are. They had a few hours counselling and were back on patrol the next day in Afghanistan. They handled this well, and they did their duty. But the long-term issues associated with this cannot be handled with a few hours counselling at any time. I believe it, and I asked that question to the Secretary of State, because I believe it has to be more than just as he said, a net or a service in place. It has to be a follow-through as well. There must be measures in place for someone to talk to when the time comes, and that's what we're seeking today. I received a card from a constituent whose family had told of our endeavours to ensure that meal, because that was an issue I've done in the past, and I know that the previous government responded very, very clearly to that there, and that was to do with some of those who are out in the field in Afghanistan and indeed Iraq, where mail from home wasn't getting through, and again governments at that time responded, and again it humbled me to see that a serving member of our armed forces took the time to write to me to say thank you, and obviously for me then to thank the government for their help in responding to that. It made me also realise just how much I always knew that soldiers they need the team back home, they need their families back home, they need those who support them. And I believe that they rely on each and every one of us to simply thank them and tell them that they're doing a good job. Sometimes just a small word is enough and sufficient when it comes to showing your support. You don't have to make a long speech, you don't have to give them a card, but just to say, look, thanks very much for what you're doing. That means a whole lot to a great many people. She never mentioned in her card how awful things were when she sent me that card. She never mentioned whether it was right or wrong to be there. She just thanked me for the support, and for everyone else as well. We have to always recognise the bravery of our personnel, and over the years we've had the opportunity to meet some of those people who have been awarded gallantry awards, and sometimes when you hear the stories, you almost stand back like it's like those boys' own stories when you were a kid and you read them all, and all of a sudden these things that you think were just fiction were actually happening out in the field, and sometimes the bravery is incredible. With growing numbers of injured personnel coming home from Afghanistan, there's an immediate need for a dedicated strategy with regards to care for themselves and their families. Just after Christmas there, I had one of my constituents who was in the Irish Guards, 18-year-old, the same age as my son, who was shot in the wrist and was very fortunate that the bullet went down his wrist and out of his elbow, didn't damage any bones, didn't damage any blood vessels or any muscles either. But I spoke with him whenever he returned, with him and his dad. We had a cup of coffee, and we just to let him know that the people of my constituency were very much supporting him. When I spoke to him afterwards, he very clearly said that the Irish Guards, who he's a member of, and the army personnel followed up afterwards with him very clearly, with his mum and dad, and they support him through. So there is a real good aftercare service from the regiments themselves, but also I believe directly to the parents. And another one lady who has left, who spoke early on, she referred to the need to have parents involved in all the process, and very clearly I think that was one of the things that happens. We haven't had a chance, sorry Madam Deputy Speaker, we haven't had a chance to maybe make a comment yet, but I will say it now. I think the homecoming parades are very important to have, and I think it must be important that people across the whole of Great Britain have the opportunity to do that. I'm thankful that this is the reason I can support the recent calls of parades to honour those coming home, why I support those who are injured and need a little help. This is also why I remember our service personnel, and I believe many in this chamber do as well, in their prayers every day. So to all of our soldiers, to our personnel, past or presently serving, and to their families left at home, I take this opportunity to say thank you to them. Your sacrifice is seen and appreciated, and as why I wholeheartedly and unreservedly support this motion.